Okay, so let's just catch up a little bit. What we're up to is the laws of borrowing, chapter 7 out of 8 chapters. We're up to section number 6, and the discussion was the balance between if I am guarding something and you asked me to guard something, so the balance between my responsibility toward fulfilling that mandate of guarding, but then I also have to do certain things to protect and preserve the object. And many times that will include actually using the object, right? So we said that if I have a book or a scroll, and if you're going to leave the scroll untouched, it's going to get ruined. So every 30 days, you have to scroll through the book, turn, those days, the scroll was like your Torah scroll. So you have to unroll it. And then if you have a garment, if it's wool, if it's going to sit in the closet, it's going to get ruined. Every now and then you have to spread it out. So that was the responsibility. Okay, fine. Now the question becomes, we say you're not allowed to use it for your own benefit, right? So what happens if I say, well, I'm having guests come to my house, and I know tomorrow I'm going to have to scroll out this beautiful tablecloth because, whatever it is, time passed and I have to scroll it to spread it out. So why don't I spread out the tablecloth on the table? When the guests come, they'll see a nice tablecloth on the table. So that you're not allowed to do because it's for your benefit. You're only allowed to do it for the benefit of the object, not for your own benefit. And if you do it for your own benefit, then that's a problem. Then it's almost like you are using it. It's almost like you stole it. We'll talk a little bit more about that later today, hopefully, if we get to number 9. And then you're liable for things that you would not be liable as an unpaid guardian. Because now you stepped out of your mandate. You're no longer an unpaid guardian because an unpaid guardian doesn't use the object. You're using the object. Fine, that was last time. Now we're going to go into another discussion. And the other discussion is you go and you give somebody money to hold. So there's going to be a very interesting difference and differentiation between who are you giving it to? Are you giving it to a banker? In other words, somebody whose business it is to trade money and hold money, etc. Or are you giving it to a homeowner, just an individual citizen? So that's one difference that we want to consider. Who am I giving the money to hold? Who am I depositing the money to? And the other question is, what does the money look like? If I give the money wrapped up and tied up, then the assumption is that you don't want me to spend it. Sorry, you give me the money. It's all tied up. You don't want me to spend it. You just want me to hold it. If you give me the money, you just hand me cash and it's not tied up, then you don't mind if I spend it as long as I give you back that money, right? So there's two ways. You can give me a $50 bill tied up in 2 envelopes and you say, I want this envelope back. In that case, you don't want me to spend that money, we assume. If you give it to me just as cash, then maybe you just want the $50 back, but you don't need this $50 back. So the difference would be, am I the guardian? Am I allowed to use the money? Difference number 1. And that ties into another question. If I'm allowed to use the money, my liability goes up, because now we already know in the beginning that the more benefit you get, the more liability you have, right? So if it's a case that I'm not allowed to use it, then I don't have my liability is much less. If it's a case that I am allowed to use it, and this is the beautiful idea, even if I don't use it, but because I'm allowed to use it, then my liability goes up. Now, that differentiation, okay, yeah, go ahead, Vicky, please.
Quick question. Does it matter if I have the money myself to back it up, or can I use it as a loan?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't have to have the money. It could be a loan, right? If I'm a banker, I take money, I give money. So you gave me $50. You say, hold it for me for 2 weeks. Do I have to hold this money? If I'm a banker and you gave it to me just not tied up, the assumption is I can lend it to somebody else. And in 2 weeks, I'll give you back the money, just like any bank does. But if that's the case, since I'm allowed to use it, then even if I don't use it, I'm not classified as an unpaid guardian. I'm classified as a borrower. Why? Because I have the right to use it. Even though it wasn't stated, you didn't tell me that I can use it, but it doesn't matter because I'm a banker and you gave me money that's not tied up. The assumption is that means I can use it. And therefore, if I could use it, then even if I don't use it, I am considered a borrower, and or a lender, but if it's a loan, and then I'm liable no matter what happens. However, in the case, let's say it would be a case where either you gave the money to a banker, it's all tied up, it's wrapped up, it's tied up, obviously you're just asking the banker to hold it for you in your safe deposit box, but you don't want it to spend that money. And then, or you gave it to, if I'm reading, I'm not looking inside, but I think the same would be, if you give it to a homeowner, not a banker, you gave it to a homeowner, no matter what, if it's tied or not, then the assumption is you don't want me to spend it. I'm not allowed to spend it. And because I'm not allowed to spend it, and I'm not allowed to use it, therefore I'm not a borrower, I'm a unpaid guardian, and therefore my liability is much less like an unpaid guardian who is only liable for negligence, but in generally is not liable. Excuse me just 1 second, if you don't mind. As Khani's calling me, just 1 second, I apologize. Yeah, so I apologize about that. Yeah, so that is the big idea in the first section. Let's share it and we'll see what happens. Okay, it's a little bit more complex than I said, but it's okay. So we'll read it inside. The following rules apply when a person entrusts money to a storekeeper or a money changer. So I learned something new this week, by the way. A shulchani in Hebrew, the money changer or a banker was called the shulchani. Shulchani is literally, the root is shulchan is table. And they call the banker literally a tabler, because that's what he would do. He would sit in the market by a table. He didn't have merchandise to sell, so he just had a table and people would come and trade money. So he's the money changer, and he's also money changer, serves as a banker. By the way, the storekeeper also serves as a banker, but that's another story. Now, what I learned, and I didn't know, that the word bank, the etymology of the word bank comes from the word bench. In Yiddish, a bank is a bench, but in German and Latin. So the point is that it's not just in the Torah, we're not just in the Mishnah and the Talmud, where shulchani, a tabler, is a guy sitting by the table, is a money changer, but that's also the English word for bank. So that was interesting. Okay, let's read. The following rules apply when a person entrusts money to a storekeeper or a money changer. If the money was bound in a bag and sealed or tied with an unordinary knot, in other words, it's not the regular way that money is being tied, it's clear that I did two things. I tied it and I made a knot that is unusual, meaning I want to show this is unique, this is for me. I don't want anyone undoing this knot. The storekeeper or the money changer should not use it. You're not allowed to use it because it was not, just because you're a bank, it doesn't mean that this money was entrusted for you to use. It was just entrusted for you to hold. That is the first thing we learn. Now, if, however, should not use it. Therefore, if it became lost or was stolen, he is not responsible for it. Why? Because the storekeeper or the banker or the money changer, they are an unpaid guardian. They're not getting paid to guard it. And because they're not getting paid to guard it, they are not responsible if it gets lost or stolen. Fine. If the money was neither sealed nor tied in an unordinary manner, even though it is bound in a bag, so you put it in a bag, yeah, you put it in an envelope, yeah, but you didn't do anything to indicate that you want this envelope to remain closed and sealed by tying it with a special knot or sealed. So just putting it in a bag is not enough. So then the law is the storekeeper or money keeper has the right to use the money, because we assume that you're giving the person the money to hold, not just to hold, but to use, and that you don't need this $50 bill back. You just want $50 back. Okay, so this is the subtlety that I missed. So you are allowed to use it. Therefore, he is considered to be a paid. Therefore, he is considered to be a paid watchman. Why is he a paid watchman? On one hand, he's guarding the item. On the other hand, he has the right to use it. So that right is like the payment. The payment is that I have the right to loan it or to use it. Therefore, it is considered to be a paid watchman. And if it is lost or stolen, he is responsible for it. If it is lost due to forces beyond his control, for example, they were taken by armed thieves, he is not liable. That's the law of a paid guardian. Paid guardian is liable for lost or stolen, and is not liable for what they call an onus. Onus means he's forced to things the damage came from something beyond his control. So he's a paid guardian. Go ahead, Vicky.
What is the difference in between the loan where, I mean, does he have to have a, with the interest, they have to return with the interest?
Let's assume there's no interest. Let's assume there's no interest. Interest is that there's a problem to charge interest, but then interest, it's not unpaid, right? Let's assume it's not, there's no interest here. So that's why if I just hold it, I'm an unpaid guardian. But if I have the right to use it, then I'm a paid guardian. Why? Because now the ability to have money that if I want to invest, I could invest. If I want to, I have money. If a good deal, if a good bargain shows up, I can buy it because I have cash, right? So having the ability, having liquid capital is considered a benefit, even if you don't use it. The fact that you have it in your bank is already a benefit. So if I'm holding your money and I have the right to use it, then that right to use it is already considered reward. And therefore, I'm now classified as a paid guardian. And the law of a paid guardian is if it's lost or stolen, I have to pay. But if it's stolen destroyed by forces out of my control, let's say an armed robber or a tsunami or whatever, then I don't have to pay. Now, what's very interesting, what I didn't highlight before, is there's a distinction between when I have the right to use it and when I actually use it. So when I have the right to use it before I used it, I am classified as a paid guardian. So I have liability for loss or stolen, but I don't have a liability for onus if it's destroyed beyond my control. If I actually use it, then that's like a loan. And by a loan, I'm responsible to pay back the loan anytime, right? If I borrow money, then I have to pay you back no matter what happened. I can't say, well, I invested in the stock and the stock tanked, so I don't have to pay you back. No, even if it's beyond my control. If I borrow money and a tsunami comes, I still have to pay you back. So a loan, you always have to pay back. So this is a funny case because it's not a loan. You asked me to guard it. Now we assume you don't mind if I use it. So because we assume we don't mind if I use it, so now there's a distinction. Before I use it, when I only have the right to use it, but I have not used it yet, I have lesser liability as a paid guardian. And that's a beautiful concept that the Torah understands, that the ability to spend money, the ability to have liquid capital is a benefit, and therefore that's like me getting paid. Now, I didn't use the money, but I have the ability to use money. I have the freedom to use the money. That itself is considered a payment, and that makes me considered a paid guardian. If I actually used it, then my liability goes higher. Then it's just like a regular loan, and a regular loan you have to pay back no matter what. So that is number 6 and number 7.
It actually makes sense because it kind of investment can be risky. Right.
So investment, if I borrow money from you, I have to pay back always. So this is a funny case because you asked me to hold something for you. I never asked you to borrow the money. If I borrow the money, I have to repay. Here, I didn't approach you to borrow money. You asked me to hold your object. But now, because I have the right to use it, so if I use it, the status of this transaction changes from an item entrusted to be held to a loan. Now, what's even more interesting is, I don't know, more interesting, but probably this I wouldn't figure out on my own, that even before I actually spent it, the fact that I have the right to spend it changes me from an unpaid guardian to a paid guardian, because that itself is beneficial. So I think that's beautiful. So let's do 7. When does the above apply? That what? That I'm like a paid guardian, and a paid guardian has liability for lost or stolen, but does not have liability if it was destroyed by forces outside his control. So that is before the storekeeper or the money changer used them. So you gave me the money. It wasn't sealed with an unusual seal. So I have the right to use the money. Because I have the right to use the money, I'm an unpaid guardian. If, however, he does use the money, he is responsible for it until he returns it to the owner, as for any other loan in the world. Once I use it, now even though you didn't give it to me as a loan, it has the status of a loan because I used it, and therefore I'm responsible even if something happens with forces beyond my control. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is number 6 and 7. Oh no, this is the other side. So that's if it's a storekeeper and a money changer, which are in the business of trading. So then if I didn't double seal it and double knot it, then you assume I'm allowing the banker to spend. Contrast that with number 8. When a person entrusts money to a householder, to a homeowner, you're not in the business of trading money. So here, whether it is bound or not, the watchman may not use it. Right here, you come to me, and I'm not in the banking business. I'm not a storekeeper. A storekeeper also served as a form of a banker because nobody had cash. So if I needed cash, I went to the grocer and I said, the grocer has cash. I said, grocer, give me cash, loan me cash, and I'll pay you back or whatever. So, but if I'm just a regular homeowner, and you give me money, even if you just give me a piece of a $50 bill and it's not tied up and it's not sealed, but that's no indication that you're giving me the right to lend it because I'm not in the lending business. So therefore, he says, number 8, when a person entrusts money to a householder, whether it is bound or not, the watchman may not use it. Therefore, if it becomes lost or was stolen, he is not responsible for it, provided he buries it in the ground, as has been explained. And that's what we're saying earlier. We said that when someone gives me money to watch, obviously, even an unpaid guardian cannot be negligent. And we discussed earlier, I believe we discussed it in the earlier chapters a long time ago, that what does it mean not to be negligent? So depending on the type of item, we would require different types of safeguarding. And basically, we said that when it comes to things that are very expensive, like money in those days were coins, silver coins or gold coins, and those things don't get ruined if you put them in the earth. Other things, you put them in the earth will get ruined, but the gold and the silver won't get ruined. So money, the Talmud says, the only legitimate way to hide money is in the earth. You have to hide it in the earth. Remember, there's no banks, and in your house, so it's easy to break in, etc. So the point is, as long as I'm not negligent, I'm a homeowner. You gave me money. You gave me $50. You gave me a $50 bill. If you gave it to the banker has the right to loan it, to use it. If you gave it to me, I'm a homeowner, I have no right to use it. And therefore, I'm not responsible if it was lost or stolen, provided that I wasn't negligent. What does it mean not to be negligent? To treat the money the way money is supposed to be treated. Okay, so I take back the case of a $50 bill because we're not talking about bill, we're talking about coin. And if it's a coin, hide it in the earth. But again, nowadays, that's not the way. That's a bill. Then I just do what people do with money. As long as I'm not negligent, I'm not responsible. Why? Because I don't have the right to use it. So if I don't have the right to use it, then I'm not responsible. And now we go into a whole another discussion. Let's say you gave me an item to hold. I have no right to use it, but I use it anyway. Now, what does that do to my liability? So that's going to be the future. That's going to be 9 and 10. That's going to be 9, and that's going to be 9, and that's going to be 9. Okay, should we stop here today?